Wuchang Fallen Feathers is an imperfect game that made me fall back in love with Soulslikes after more than a year of Souls burnout. Hoi, I'm Mighty Melvo. You're either here because you want to know if this game is worth your buckaroos, or because you already have an opinion and want it confirmed or shattered. Either way, this video is for you. Straight off the bat, I loved every second of my 40-hour-long playthrough, and I think Wuchang is one of those games where mixed reviews on Steam don't reflect what's actually inside. It's got exactly what a simple person like myself wants from a Soulslike: an incendiary, hot, badass protagonist, cruel and punishing difficulty, decent combat, incredible lore, censorship, fantastic and rewarding exploration, and a healthy dose of Souls-like bullshittery. The game has plenty of highs, a few lows like the inconsistent performance, and some real head-scratchers from the devs. We'll get into all that in this video, alright? Let's see if Wuchang Fallen Feathers is worth buying now. Shall we? A quick disclaimer before we dive in. There are now two versions of the game, 1.4 and 1.5.1. 1.4 is the version closest to the original vision of the devs, with the original enemy placements, and 1.5.1 is the trimmed version, reduced enemy density, some NPCs and bosses made unkillable, but with some genuinely good quality of life improvements like faster healing and recovery animations. All the footage you'll see here is from 1.4. I'll probably make a separate video breaking down the differences in more detail, so watch out for that. Alright, so Wuchang Fallen Feathers is set in the late Ming Dynasty in the land of Shu. You play as Wuchang, a pirate girl on a quest to revive a dead sister. At the same time, you are infected with something called feathering, a disease that slowly turns you into a bird monster, but also gives you supernatural abilities.
No, please don't eat me!
The gameplay loop will feel familiar if you've touched any other Souls-like. Explore interconnected areas, unlock bonfires, here called shrines, collect souls to level up and learn new skills, find gear, fight bosses, and slowly piece together the world's mysteries through cryptic item descriptions and conversations with dubious characters.
What do you get when you cross an owl with a bungee cord? My ass.
Though the game throws a few twists into the usual Souls-like formula. First, there's a madness meter. It rises every time you kill a human or die in battle. When it fills up, you deal and receive more damage. If you die with the madness meter maxed out, your corpse run gets interesting. You have to fight your inner demon, which now guards your souls. It's interesting that your inner demon attacks everything around it, not just Wuchang. Beating it empties the meter. At the same time, killing diseased, feathered creatures lowers it gradually. Another creative feature is Skyborn Might. It's a resource that you obtain by performing perfect dodges or parries, and it stacks into Wu-Tang's feathered arm. You can spend it to cast spells or unleash more powerful variations of weapon arts called disciplines. It's a really cool mechanic that forces you to fight strategically. For example, you might play defensively first, stacking up Skyborn Might charges by dodging simple and well-telegraphed attacks, and then unload on the strongest and trickiest enemy in the group with a devastating spell or a discipline skill. Disciplines are not exclusive to a weapon, but a weapon type. You unlock them in the skill tree and slot them into whatever weapon of that type you like, quite similar to Ashes of War in Elden Ring. There are 5 weapon types total: long swords, one-handed swords, axes, dual blades, and spears. These basically serve as Wuchang's classes, so to speak, each with its own branch on the skill tree, accessible at shrines through a menu called Impetus Repository. Straight out of Warhammer 40k feels like Impetus Repository, brother. This is where things really got interesting for me. I went longsword because it felt like the canon choice for a first run, and at the same time I decided to mix and match and dabble in other branches to reach the bigger nodes, these ones that gave me +5 to attributes I needed for my build. Basically just winged it and turned out pretty good. It made me feel very smart too, like I figured it out myself. The coolest thing is that you can respec anytime at 0 cost from any shrine. The game practically begs you to experiment with different builds, but I was stubborn and brute forced the whole thing with the longsword, so sticking to one weapon is perfectly viable too. Also, in Impetus Repository, you can upgrade your weapon mastery, the one that gives you a weapon that plus 1, 2, 3 scaling, and I really loved that it's not tied to a weapon but a skill node. Essentially, when you upgrade your longsword mastery, every longsword in your inventory instantly scales up with it. I think it's a huge quality of life win. Here's a little nitpick from me though, there aren't many weapon variations. I think I only found 4 longswords in the entire game. It's compensated somewhat by the different weapon types. If you get bored, you can respec and try something new, but still feels a little bit sparse. On top of that, you've got Temperance, that's shoving needles into your feathered arm to infuse status effects, and Benediction, that's slotting up to 3 runes into your weapon for bonuses or special effects. It's very straightforward and, like everything else, fully reversible at no cost. Another thing I want to cram into this section of the video is armor swap and fashion, because of how flexible it is. Just like the weapon runes and skills, you have to constantly change your gear. Every single set gives you defense bonuses for certain types of damage. If you're facing a boss with lightning attacks, wear lightning resistant gear, so yeah, you'll have to change gear pretty often. Good news, there's a built-in transmog system, and bad news, it's tedious. You can override a gear's piece look at the press of a button, but it only applies to that piece. When you eventually swap it out, you'll have to transmogrify the new one all over again if you want the same style. I just really wish there was a set rule system, like apply one outfit globally and keep it no matter what gear you switch. By the end game, I just gave up all that tedium and let Wulong look like an insect clown when she had to. So yeah, the upgrade systems are generous and very flexible, which is nice, because you're going to need that in combat. Combat is the most important aspect of a good action RPG. If it sucks, the rest doesn't really matter. And I think in Wuchang this aspect is great, with a few buts. To me, I felt like the combat really started to shine once I unlocked a few disciplines. I played the whole thing with the longsword, and one of the first disciplines you get is parry. It felt weird at first, stiff, but the parry window is so generous that figuring out the timing was a matter of seconds. You also have to face the enemy to successfully parry an attack, so if you try to parry while circling around, their attack goes through. So it takes some time to get used to the tempo of combat in Wuchang, but I'd say it clicked for me. I liked that the game wants you to be strategic and aggressive, encouraging you to build up your Skyborn might as fast as you can by dodging and parrying. Almost from the start, you also unlock the ability to stack Skyborn might through combos. For longswords, for example, every second attack of your R1 combo gives you 1 Skyborn might, and it feels really good to build it up, especially when facing a group of enemies. You have to think about which enemy needs to go ASAP, and which one is worth keeping around to be used to build Skyborn might. On top of melee combat, there's also magic. You can equip up to 4 spells and easily switch between them mid-combat. Casting requires, you guessed it, Skyborn might, so in Wuchang you never run out of mana. Another pretty straightforward thing is a poise system. You break enemy poise by chaining attacks, and once it's broken you can perform a critical, which Wuchang calls obliterate. I love how every Soulslike comes up with a new fancy word for critical, really expanding my vocabulary here. You can also perform backstabs, but unlike in Dark Souls or Elden Ring, you need to land a charged heavy attack on an enemy's back. It only works on humanoids, but it instantly breaks their poise. I thought that was a nice little twist. And it works on humanoid bosses too. I'll talk about some of the bosses now, just briefly, and it's really hard to do that without showing them, so use this time code if you don't want them spoiled. Alright, so bosses in Wuchang are definitely an acquired taste. Most of them are hyper aggressive, fast as hell, and love chaining combos that feel like they never end. It takes practice, dedication, and quite a few deaths before you start spotting openings to punish or heal. I think I was in the mood for that kind of brutality during my playthrough, so I ended up enjoying about 90% of the boss roster. There were a few downright stinkers though, like the tree boss. Of course, there has to be a shitty tree boss, but Commander Honglan, for example, is one of my favorite bosses in Soulslikes now, period. You face her quite early in the game, and the difficulty spike feels insane at first. I was stuck on Honglan for a couple of days, no less. It was beautiful. The fight felt like a dance. There was some shitty hitbox moments in the second phase, but they didn't ruin the fun, and the victory felt deserved, not like I just got lucky. And everything else was really good, man. The arena, the score, Honglan herself, she's a badass warrior with epic one-liners.
Not for your hands.
And here are another couple of bosses that really stood out for me. Bow Sorcerer, just for the sheer spectacle of it, and Fierce Tiger.
Tiger.
I can't quite explain why, but that fight felt so tragic and sad, like watching a reanimated tiger forced to bounce around the arena like some sad broken puppet. Bottom line, bosses in these games should be a treat after clearing a location, like a nice meal after a hard day at work. And in Wuchang I felt like I was treated to nice meals more often than not. That being said, it's also tradition to be served soapy dog shit from time to time, so here's my nitpick. Some of the runbacks are annoyingly long, not in a clear a room full of trash mobs way, but in the climb a giant ladder or ride a long ass elevator way. This, according to one of the patch notes, will be fixed eventually by placing like stakes of Marika next to boss rooms. Maybe it's already fixed depending on when you're watching this, but as of now 1.4 and 1.5.1 versions of the game have these sometimes annoying boss runbacks. That said, I'd like to parry this bad design with good design. More often than not, I had other places to explore if I was stuck on a boss. Usually if I die to something like 5 or more times, I backtrack and grind a bit. In Wuchang, there was always another path, another area to poke around in. I never felt hard stuck longer than I needed to. That flexibility makes up for some of the shortcomings in combat and boss design. A lot of people have already said the exploration and interconnectivity in Wuchang is so good it could make Dark Souls 1 blush. Personally, I don't see much point in comparing games that are more than 10 years apart, but if I had to, Wuchang might actually win. The world design here is close to phenomenal. Every region of the map is crammed with branching paths to the point where sometimes it feels like the game's trolling you. You go left at a fork, 20 steps in it branches again, and then again. You're far from the bonfire, low on health, stress starts creeping in, and then suddenly you stumble across a shabby door, you open it, and hell yeah, you're right back at the bonfire. This is where Wuchang really toys with you. Sometimes you push so far from the safety you start thinking, if I die right now, I'm losing half an hour of progress. But at the last moment the game throws a shortcut your way. Oh yeah, you do die, but then realize it only took you half an hour because you'd been poking around your nose into every nook and cranny, and the actual corpse run takes a couple of minutes. Around the mid-game I actually started taking notes because there are just so many places to go. There were a couple of areas I found and decided to leave for later and couldn't find again. I clearly remember there was a rope bridge somewhere in Warship's Rise, the first location of the game, and I couldn't find it again despite thoroughly looking everywhere. The layout of every map feels natural and smartly designed, never overwhelming, never confusing, aside from a couple of areas clearly made just to take the piss out of you. Every dusty corner of the map has something, an item, a flask upgrade, a new piece of armor. Exploration has that dangerous just 15 more minutes energy at 3 AM on a Tuesday. It's captivating, and most importantly, every area is fun as hell to explore. And you know what else is fun to explore? This channel. Click that subscribe button and explore. Right now it's only slightly better than a poison swamp in Dark Souls 3, but it'll get better tomorrow even, with your help. I'm gunning at 10,000 subscribers by the end of the year, so support is greatly appreciated. Cheers, mate. I want to briefly touch on the story. No major spoilers, just an expanded synopsis from the beginning and my personal take on it. You play as Bai Wuchang, pirate, or an ex-pirate, who arrives in Shu province during an alternate Ming dynasty to find a way to resurrect her sister using a mysterious chisel artifact. Somewhere along the way you get infected with feathering, a disease that wipes your memory and slowly turns you into a bird-like monstrosity.
Birdie.
The chisel seems to both keep Wukong from fully transforming and also rewinds time when you die. On your journey, you slowly uncover the origins of feathering and a bunch of other stories that get pretty dark. The whole premise of the snowy palace area, for example, is unsettling, creepy, and sad as hell. Overall, I found the story fairly easy to follow compared to other Soulslikes, which usually lean hard into cryptic nonsense. But that said, I still had to hit up a few Reddit threads after my first playthrough to fill in the blanks. The game also has multiple endings, and I'm pretty sure I got the bad one, despite following every NPC quest I could find and crawling through every shithole on the map. And let me tell you, brother, the bad ending is not for the faint of heart. Speaking of NPC quests, on paper they look so easy to follow since you can track each character's location when you teleport, their portraits appear next to location names. It looks like a total giveaway, but it's not. You still have to do some legwork because they won't be standing right next to a shrine waiting for you. I was so confident nobody's gonna die in the end because I've really put in the work to talk to every single weirdo, but the ending I got proved me wrong. I treated NPC hunting as something to do whenever I got stuck on a boss, and it was actually pretty fun roaming around looking for them, and not only because I enjoyed the exploration, but also because every area looks distinct and very beautiful. I really enjoyed how Wuchang Fallen Feathers look. There's not much to add here looking at it right now. The game is gorgeous, but like almost every Unreal Engine 5 game, it runs like doo-doo at times. And you know, I don't really mind. I've got a pretty high tolerance for bad performance, and Wuchang isn't terrible in that regard. It held a stable 60 in full HD most of the time, with dips below during some boss fights when the screen got especially busy. On my mid-tier PC, it was totally playable. Not perfect, but playable. The occasional choppiness never ruined the experience. If you are the type who dropped a few $1,000s on a war machine just to run everything in 4K 240 FPS, you might want to do some research first, or at least stay within that refund window, because the game shows you exactly what you're in for performance-wise within the first 2 hours. I don't recall any specific areas where the frame rate tanked harder than the rest. And before we wrap up, I want to briefly touch on the controversy around the game because some of the devs' decisions could be deal breakers for certain players. First, one of the patches shipped with so-called performance fixes that were really just locked oversampling values. For DLSS it's stuck at 67% and for FSR it's stuck at 50%. Players report that no matter what settings you choose, the quality doesn't actually change in-game. I haven't tested this myself because I don't care, but if true, that's a shady tactic, not cool. And then there's the bigger one, censorship. Here's what happened and how I understand it. Wuchang Fallen Feathers is set in the late Ming Dynasty era, so naturally you encounter Ming-related characters, foot soldiers, peasants, generals, bosses, and you can fight and kill them. Apparently, that upset a lot of Ming-descended Chinese people who make up the majority of the population in China, as far as I know. When patch 1.5 landed, it brought some great quality of life features, faster recovery after being downed, faster flask drinking, but also major gameplay changes. After the patch, you can no longer attack Ming characters. And Ming bosses don't die anymore, they just get back up after you beat them and deliver a friendly, great sparring session speech. I find it upsetting, but not because you can't kill certain bosses now, but because it kinda undermines the story. The resurrection tropes that were explored in the game and the game handled so well suddenly feel hollow. And it also breaks the balance. Take the endgame area where Ming soldiers fight the Feathered. Originally both factions attacked you. The Feathered saw you as a human, the Ming saw you as a monster. That made sense. And now Ming soldiers ignore you and even help you fight the Feathered. That doesn't make sense at all. I really hope the devs fix this, maybe replace Ming soldiers with new enemy models, but keep their movesets because they're genuinely fun to fight.
Off with your head!
I don't know how things are in China when it comes to spicy topics like this, but I can guess that it's pretty different from the West, so like I said, yes, it's upsetting, and yes, gamers should speak up when devs censor their games like that, especially post-launch. But will I let that ruin my experience with the game? No, I'm making a deliberate choice not to. Also, because if you're on PC, there's a simple way to roll back the patch. Just grab a mod from Nexus. That's what I did, and that's what I recommend if you're on PC. I'll drop the link in the description. That way you'll be able to experience the game as it was intended. Who needs faster recovery and healing animations anyway? Cowards, that's who. If you're on console, there's probably a way to roll back too. If you know how, let us know in the comments. In conclusion, I give Wuchang Fallen Feathers 9 dead Ming soldiers out of 10 pre-patch and 8 post-patch. That's -1 point for not letting me stack Skyborn Might off helpless peasants. Censorship aside, I think Wuchang is a fantastic game and a must-play for any Souls-like fan. Despite its shortcomings, I'm already looking forward to New Game Plus. In the meantime, I'm downloading Black Myth Wukong and Wulong while blasting Wu-Tang because Wuchang reignited my passion for Chinese mythology again. That was pretty lame. Thanks for watching, see ya.